Good morning, everyone. This is Casey Reginald Jr.
Your man J Dub in the building.
Welcome to UnderDawg Sportz. Welcome to the show, everyone. Before we get started, it's just Justin and me, as one of our own has been stricken by the COVID-19. Omar Diggs has tested positive for coronavirus. Our prayers are with you, big homie. I was not
Yes,
going
sir.
to do this, but you told me to go ahead and make that announcement as to why you're not on that show. But I will tell you that you are missed. A couple of these topics we really put together with you in mind. So I really hope you get a chance to listen. Our prayers are with you and your family and anyone else dealing with this coronavirus pandemic.
Yes, sir. Blessings to them all. And definitely blessings to the big homie Omar. Definitely.
All righty. So Justin and I were just talking about before we came onto the show whether or not this is something that we wanted to do, because that news did hit a little hard with Omar yesterday. But I would like to personally thank the Chicago Bears for getting me out the bed this morning, because I was going to say no. But the Chicago Bears have decided to be one of the only NFL franchises not to delay the paying of season tickets. Some of these people are writing checks as much, at least of $20,000 or more for these tickets. First off, the Chicago Bears have not won a Super Bowl since 1985. I think they last were in a Super Bowl when Kyle Orton was their quarterback. Was it Kyle Orton? Am I right?
Rex Grossman.
Okay, Rex Grossman.
2006 Super Bowl. So it's been a while.
So that's 14 years ago. In the middle of a global pandemic, a franchise that is most recently famous by drafting Mitchell Trubisky over Patrick Mahomes. A franchise that has not sniffed the playoffs, even though they went and got Defensive Player of the Year Khalil Mack from the Oakland Raiders and traded away their entire draft for moves like this. Have the audacity in the third largest city in the country, my fault, to charge their fans who are going through a global pandemic, and it will only get worse in this city over the next couple of weeks if they want to keep their season tickets. I'm sorry. I'm offended for the people of Chicago. I'm offended for the NFL. I'm offended for the Bears organization, because they don't need this money right now. The people that they're asking to pay it just might. They may need this money to pay their utilities, their rent, their mortgage, whatever they have going on. But the Bears want this money right now. For what reason, I don't know.
Not to mention the fact, let's keep it real.
Jesse, you breaking up.
Yeah, you hear me?
You are coming in and out like
All right, for those diehard Bear fans, it's probably my opinion, who are crazy enough to buy these tickets. You do know some of these people will be the same people that are using their stimulus money to buy this ticket. So why are we even concentrating on this? It doesn't make any sense to me. Why are the Bears even going there to do it? They should be a discount, because NFL is non-existent outside of all this free agency movement, which is dying down very, very fast. Hold on. Can you hear me better now?
Yeah.
All right. Which is dying down really, really fast. So what the hell the Bears are trying to do headlines by doing this is beyond me, to quote the great Ha Ha Davis. But it's just stupid. And fans, and Bears have some of the most diehard fans in sports, period, not just the NFL. And they're going to pay this money. Why? For a mediocre product? For another 7-9 or 8-8 team, or even worse? Why? like you said, they haven't been in the playoffs in years. They did get Khalil Mack. That drew a lot of attention. But even Khalil Mack, as great as a defensive player as he is, cannot stop their offensive woes. Every time they get something good, they trade them, cut them, or otherwise. We can go back dealing with Forte. They ruined Jordan Howard. They ran him to death. And they're probably going to do the same thing with little Tariq Cohen sooner rather than later. It just doesn't make any sense.
It absolutely makes no sense at all. Like I said, these people don't need this money right now. Not an organization that made billions of dollars last year or shared in billions of dollars last year. You're asking people to take money out of their homes, out of what they probably need in reserve to pay, real bills, to pay for some entertainment that, hell, we may get a draft, we may not, even though the commissioner sent out a letter saying the draft is going to happen on time. Great. But all of this is less than what we expect. All the camps are in jeopardy right now. At this particular moment, truth be told, we have no idea when the National Football League season will start this year. If the National Football League season will start this year. Because this global pandemic is not slowing down. And for an organization that is rolling in dough like the Chicago Bears to be asking their fans to come off of 20,000 plus in the middle of this, if I'm a fan and one guy said I'm going to go ahead and write this check even though I feel like I'm being squeezed for my last drop of blood, even though you're going to have fans that do it, if I'm a fan, I see what they actually care about. And I know factually that's not me. And that's how I handle this organization until they change ownership now.
That's hard to say because they've been under the same ownership for how many years?
Yeah, since their inception, basically, right?
They're the Hollis family with George and all them. That's a legacy. That's like the Rooneys with us, and then your squad with your ownership, and even the New York Giants. They've been over 50 years with the same ownership.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard to go ahead and change that one.
I'm just saying, if I'm a fan, I know that they don't give a shit about me anymore. They can say we do all this for the fans. You didn't do this for the fans. You did this to line your damn pockets. Anyway, I'm not going to give the Bears all my energy this morning. Justin has a great agenda set up for us. I kind of threw this in there. Justin had no idea, except for when we first got on the phone this morning, that's kind of what motivated me to get up and talk to you all this morning. Our big headline today is what I really want to kind of dive into is free agency's winners and losers so far. We're going to recap some of the free agent moves, but I do want to name the biggest losers so far in free agency before we start, really, and that, to me, is Cam Newton. The Panthers knew we kind of go through this ordeal every year with a player or two where everyone else knows that this team is not going to keep them, and they're not going to keep that contract on the books, and you're going to have to release them. But you're trying to get a trade going, and I'm guessing you were asking for a second or third round pick when everyone else knows that if you don't give them that, you're going to have to cut them.
Mm-hmm.
So because they did this, Cam Newton is left looking around for a new job right now when the likes of ancient dust-throwing quarterback Phillip Rivers lines up with Indianapolis and things like that happen, and one of the best quarterbacks that are still in their prime are on the sidelines hoping for a job. So to me, Cam Newton is the biggest loser so far in free agency. And by making him the biggest loser, I think the Panthers organization might have signed themselves up for future free agents not wanting to play for this organization because of what they did to what has been the face of this organization for the last 10 years.
I agree with you with that. I think it's a twofold. I think Cam is the biggest loser, individually, and the Panthers are the biggest loser as a team. The reason why I say I think Cam Newton, I think he betted on himself too much at one point, because remember, they offered him before Teddy got signed about 3 or 4 days beforehand. They gave Cam permission to sneak his trade, and Cam via his IG, his weird IG with all the little special characters and stuff, basically banked on the fact that somebody was going to trade him for possibly a number 1 or number 2 or what have you. They didn't. So Cam kind of was overzealous with it. Not to mention the Panthers. The Panthers went out, and to this day, I get the Teddy Bridgewater deal, but I don't get the Teddy Bridgewater deal for one specific reason. It's not improving the team as a whole. Teddy is a great quarterback, but Teddy right now seems more, at this point of his career, after all the injuries that he's taken, is more of a game manager until otherwise shown than a game changer. They still don't have any wide receivers. They lost Olsen as a tight end. You only have CMC, Christian McCaffrey. Then, not to mention, Teddy gets signed, and then they get the hottest hand in XFL, PJ Walker, who has a personal relationship with the coach from his Temple days. That coach and that correlation in itself can't be a mistake. So now does Teddy have to look over his shoulder? If he makes a mistake, hey, let me go get my guy and pull him in. So now it's very uncomfortable on every angle. This whole Carolina situation in general was wrong. Not to mention, icing on the cake, let's go back 3 weeks before free agency started. They did a trade where they traded Trey Turner, the guard, for Russell Chung, the left tackle, and Russell does not want to play in Carolina. He's already had grievances. He's trying to get a grievance with the NFLPA to make sure that he can get out of this deal, which they can't. It's a straight-up trade, which I didn't understand why they did the straight-up trade where Trey Turner was getting paid almost $4 million less than Ochung, and Ochung hasn't done nothing but been on several teams. In general, I just think Carolina was the biggest loser in this one. I just didn't get none of the deals they did. And then not to mention they've built up the NFC South with Sanders going to New Orleans, Drew Brees coming back, Tom Brady going down to Tampa with those weapons. Although I would say Bruce could have probably got Cam cheaper, but okay, whatever. Yeah, I just don't get it.
So I am going to say that they have made a play at wide receiver. Robbie Anderson is there now. I don't know that he constitutes a number 1 receiver, but it's better than anything Cam had since Steve Smith left. And on the Teddy Bridgewater front, I agree with you that he is a game manager, but that's what he's been pigeonholed to do because he came into the league with Minnesota, who had a top 5 defense, and then he was babysitting for Drew Brees. But he's still 27 years old. He'll turn 28 this football season. So he has a chance. His ceiling is still out there, especially considering he's been sitting on the bench for 2.5 years, started off with that injury. So there's a chance that Teddy Bridgewater could get better. He is the younger of those quarterbacks. I don't know necessarily that he's got the biggest upside, but he's a pretty accurate guy. He's always been a game manager. At the very least, he can do that. And he's got a better weapon than Cam had his last 5, 6, 7 years with that organization anyway. So
very true.
I disagree with their moves, but I won't call them the biggest losers. I think what they did to Cam makes them losers. I think it's going to be hard for them in the future to recruit because of how they showed Cam the door. But I don't think they're the biggest losers. I think the Houston Texans are the biggest losers. I think Bill O'Brien and his buffoonery has made the Houston Texans the biggest losers. By trading DeAndre Hopkins, by
getting nothing,
by giving up their draft last year for Laramie Tunsil. Here's my biggest thing about the D-Hop move. If you paid that much to get Laramie Tunsil last year, Why the hell did you accept the Ford Pinto that you got back for an all-pro wide receiver? I just don't get that. That does not reconcile with my brain. So for me, for them to say this was about money, I don't think it was. Because if it's about money, this is freaking DeAndre Hopkins. He's on a stage to be a Hall of Famer when his career is over with. If he keeps playing the way he's been playing, for you to get a 4th round pick in David Hall or David Johnson?
Yeah.
Bro, but you gave up a 1st round pick for Laramie Tunsil last year. Come on. Yes, the Texans are the biggest losers, and because of them being the biggest losers, their quarterback wants out.
So Deshaun Watson has been sending cryptic tweets all week long, actually the last week and a half, pretty much ever since D-Hop has left, quoting Drake, talking about your rivals or your idols, never trust them, never lie. You see a snake in the grass. If you read it, he's not talking to anybody, not none of his friends, not his agent, not his mama, nobody, but he feels betrayed from the Texans. Let's give you hindsight of why he feels like that. Deshaun Watson was not drafted necessarily by Bill O'Brien. This was an agreement that Rick Smith, one of his last deals before he was relieved of his duties, told the old owner, Bob McNair, rest in peace, that this kid is it. This kid is going to be the big one. Because it was really between Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun. Supposedly, there was a rumor that Bill O'Brien wanted to trade all the way up to go get Mitchell Trubisky in his 1 year phenomenon, which would have been absolute. But the Texans didn't have the horses to go ahead and trade up, which would have been cataclysmic at best. Remember, Bill O'Brien was the one that told Rick Smith it was a good idea to go get Brock Osweiler. Anyway, and you see how that worked. Brock's not even in the league anymore. He's retired. Human statue. But Deshaun came from Clemson. When Deshaun Watson first got to Clemson, one of his main targets was one DeAndre Hopkins. So now, of course, there's a 2-year difference. DeAndre was a junior and left out a year early when Deshaun was a freshman. Deshaun was also freshman of the year of college football and the ACC. And it probably helped because he had one DeAndre Hopkins along with Martavius Bryant and Mike Williams, who's in LAL right now, LAC, the Chargers. So they have chemistry. They have camaraderie. D-Hop was at Deshaun's championship game when they beat Alabama for the NCAA championship. They're friends. They do HEB commercials together.
Not anymore.
They take in definitely not anymore now. I know the guy from HEB is like, why the hell did y'all do that? Now I just got Deshaun. And he may not want to do it anymore. Anyway, all of a sudden the rumor mill started to happen. And now all of a sudden Deshaun's associated with going to New England. I did see Chicago recently. I don't see that happening. But the way Bill O'Brien's been trading people, hell, he may trade. Deshaun Watson may be up in New England for a box of raisins and some toilet paper at this rate. Because the fact of the matter is, Deshaun now I think officially does not want to be. He's doing all the right things as far as being a leader and not being a chemistry problem. But in the back of his mind, when you traded one of his best friends and one of the strongest weapons in the NFL at wide receiver, kind of like, dude, what did you bring back? Did you bring back the ghost of Megatron? Did you bring Michael Thomas? Did you bring Odell Beckham? Did you bring anybody? Now, it makes sense if you wanted to trade D-Hop and then you went to Cleveland and got Odell Beckham. It's not a great trade, but I can understand it now. D-Hop wanted to get paid. He did not want to be the 5th or 6th highest paid wide receiver in the league while he's doing all pro numbers. He wanted to be number one. I totally respect it. If Michael Thomas is getting $23 million and I'm a shade under Michael Thomas, I should be at 20, not 17 or 16. So I can understand that. But he didn't do it in a way that he didn't go to the media. He didn't go to social media at that. He didn't get on ESPN. He didn't hold out. He didn't do anything. He didn't pout. He didn't do anything. He went to management and said, hey, I think I should get paid more. Bill O'Brien laughed at him, and next thing you know, he got traded.
So definitely, like, at the beginning of this, before the offseason actually really started, before any of these moves were made, I was a little bit perturbed and disturbed in Kansas City because Sammy Watkins, for all intents and purposes, seemed to have wanted to go to to Houston, and play for the Texans alongside D-Hop and Deshaun Watson and bring a whole Clemson connection to that organization. Exactly. Since then, not only is D-Hop gone, the quarterback seems to be cryptically saying he wants out. And they definitely aren't in the play for Sammy Watkins at this point. I don't know how much leash Bill O'Brien has left because these fans are still. We've talked about this for a few weeks now, and the reason we continue to talk about it because these fans are still pissed, and they are more pissed now that DeAndre is quoting Drake on Twitter every couple of days. Like, they are afraid of losing their quarterback, who they believe is the guy that will take them to the promised land. I've been saying for at least a year now, you don't make it to the promised land with Bill O'Brien as your head coach.
True.
Up until this particular offseason, I had given Bill O'Brien the benefit of the doubt when it came to being a general manager. Now, he's flunked at that too. This guy, like, he's awful at everything he does in regards to football. He's not a good coordinator. He's not a good coach, not head coach, and he's definitely not a good GM. I think someone should probably make him an offensive line coach at this point, but he is running the Houston Texans organization into the ground. It seems like as fast as humanly possible. And if Cal McNair does not intervene, I very much fear the direction of the Houston Texans. And this is a team going into week 4 last season. We were talking about being one of those top 5 teams. Well, they've taken 3 steps back in one offseason because their stupid general manager / head coach has decided that it's him and his way or the highway. Well, people of Houston, you better step up and let him know that it's your way or the highway because this is bullshit.
I agree. But think about this real quick on we can get off of this. What's the one thing quarterbacks, when they're free agents, that they want to have? Let's bring up.
Look at Tom Brady. That's right.
What did he want? He pissed off to New England because they didn't give him weapons. Yeah, let Gronk retire for whatever reason. AB was a disaster. And then you go ahead and get with Mohamed Sanu. He can't catch.
I laughed at that
Edelman
trade.
Hurt. Right. Edelman is hurt. And then, you got these other guys that just – you let Amendola walk, so you let his other favorite target walk, and he goes to Miami. And Tom doesn't have weapons. So what's the first thing Tom does? He looks around the league, say, who needs a quarterback? Oh, Tampa got 2 great Pro Bowl, 1 All-Pro, but 2 Pro Bowl wide receivers, and possibly a Pro Bowl if he could stay healthy, tight end. Hey, let me go ahead and do this. Tom doesn't – and Tom knows he's old, and he doesn't have to maneuver around. Drew Brees is another one. Drew Brees is not leaving. Well, he's the king of Louisiana anyway, but he wasn't going to leave New Orleans. Why? He got Michael Thomas. Drew Brees, one thing you always can say is every year he's been in New Orleans, he's had some type of weapon. He's had Michael Thomas, Colston, Jimmy Graham, and that's the best Jimmy Graham's ever had. Even having Ben Watson, he's always had some type of weapons. Quarterbacks know they need weapons. They know in this type of NFL, they cannot do it. So when you take away Deshaun Watson, you take away his weapons, and you rely on Kenny Stills, can't stay healthy. Will Fuller, even worse. Darren Fells, who they did re-sign, who's okay. And a running back that's hurt, and David Johnson, who might not be any better than the 2 running backs they had with Lamar Miller and Carlos Hyde.
Might not
did
be.
an adequate job.
Might not be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Probably won't.
Yeah. So I like what you did there. I want to first go to where you started because I wanted to get to the third biggest loser, the New England Patriots. Losing what has been considered and what seems to be the consensus greatest player of all time in Tom Brady. Not filling that void. They filled that void with Brian freaking Hoyer. They've done nothing at the wide receiver position. This is a team that has perennially been Super Bowl contenders. And all of a sudden, they look like the Bengals.
Worse than that.
I don't know that it can be worse than that. I don't know that you can be worse than the Bengals.
Cleveland just started getting good, bro. Cleveland 2000 to 2014.
Yeah.
Say Johnny Manziel year.
Let's just say worse than the state of Ohio in National Football League football.
There you go.
How about
that's
that?
A losing record regardless. That's a losing record regardless.
But
I agree with you.
Enough of the losers, because I want to bring in the other part of what you did there. Let's talk about winners. And probably the best winner in free agency so far has been Tom Brady. He went from a team that was stifled offensively to a team that had a 5,000-yard passer last year, even though he threw for 30 interceptions. He still threw for 5,100-plus yards last year. And no matter how bad Brady is at this stage of his career, with those weapons, he's going to get at least 4,000, probably closer to 4,500 yards with those weapons in Tampa Bay. So he single-handedly, besides one Kyler Murray, may be the biggest winner in free agency so far.
Oh, no, this is a no-brainer. I totally agree with you with that. Touchdown Tom, as he likes, or TB12, or whatever you want to call it, did the best strategic move for a guy that's at 43 years of age. He did, unlike Brett Favre when he got old and some of these other guys that got old, he kind of played it smart and said, I need to go where I don't necessarily – I know where my limitations are. But I know I can get a ball to a guy that can get separation on any given occasion. I know I can get a guy that can jump, that's already 6 feet forward and can jump 40 inches. And I know a guy that I can break off as a tight end is concerned and get the ball. And I know a coach that can play the way I want to play, but yet has been successful with multiple quarterbacks. Again, Aaron's had Jameis is 50-50 with Bruce Arians, but he resurrected Carson Palmer's career. He definitely helped Andrew Luck, and then he also helped the young Ben Roethlisberger be better than what he was. So, true, Tom Brady is one. And as a fan, I hate to say this, but I thank Tom Brady because now we get to see the GOAT matchup, as Reggie pointed out the last podcast. We get to see the GOAT matchup, the quote-unquote GOAT matchup, 2 times a year for the next 2 years to really prove who is the greatest of all time. And now we can get past Manning because he's obviously not on this list anymore.
No, we haven't talked about him, and I don't think we talked about him the entire last football season. That's how good football has gotten and how far he's fallen in that GOAT conversation.
Correct.
Yeah, that matchup is great. You did bring up Drew Brees and his weapons, and this is kind of why I separate Drew Brees. When I call him the greatest statistical quarterback of all time, the only reason I put that second word in there is because the other guy has more championships. But Drew Brees has taken receivers that other teams just didn't want or didn't know how to utilize and made these receivers all look like number ones or look good enough. Like, he made Joe Horn look spectacular. He made Michael Colston look great. Now, Michael Thomas is underrated, but his career has benefited from having a quarterback like Drew Brees throw him the football. So that's why I always say that Drew Brees is the greatest statistical quarterback in the league's history. But I think as far as a passer is concerned, I think he's a much more superior passer than Tom Brady has ever been, period. Because he's made those players better year after year after year. Because nobody wanted freaking Joe Horn. Kansas City let him go. He was basically a third receiver, special teams guy. He goes and plays with Drew Brees a couple years, and all of a sudden, Joe Horn can be a damn number one, definitely a number two. Why is that? Because you got a quarterback that's elite, throwing him the football. You know the best thing that ever happened to the Kansas City Chiefs is Drew Brees leaving the Los Angeles/San Diego Chargers.
I'll give you one.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was about to say, I'll give you one better. Drew Brees, although he only played 2 years with him, Drew Brees took a guy that had never played football in college, just played in high school, was an undrafted free agent, and made the guy become a star, and then just once he left to go to New Orleans, and we're talking about Antonio Gates, basically helped Phillip Rivers' career immensely. But it started because Drew Brees was getting this guy who they didn't really think was going to be anything because, again, he never played. He was a college basketball player at, undersized at 6'5", and I think he's a little less than me. He's probably like 260. But turned this guy into all-world. And this guy ends up having a definitive career in the NFL because it started with Drew Brees believing in him. I don't see Phillip Rivers doing the same thing. By this point, Gates knew routes and everything else. So, yeah, I agree with you. Statistical-wise, and, yeah, you got to say that. This is why the debate's always going to be there. We're going to go with stats versus championships because, Drew only has one. So, and actually, he's only been to the Super Bowl once. It's just that one time, right?
Right.
He didn't lose him.
No. Yeah. And in addition to, since you want to go tight end, like you said earlier, Jimmy Graham. Like, Jimmy Graham,
yes,
his time with Drew Brees was dynamic. And ever since then, like, dude has been, like, he wouldn't start for half the teams in the NFL. Everyone let him start because of his name and what he did with Drew Brees. But he's not been he's not been close to that player since he left Drew Brees' side. So, yes, Tom Brady made some players a little better, but not on the scale that Drew Brees has made players better around him. Tom Brady had the benefit of a team and a great coach that knows how to put together great defensive schemes to win a lot more Super Bowls. But as far as making offensive players, receivers better, I don't know that we've seen a quarterback this good at doing that in our lifetimes. Like, I would say maybe Peyton Manning, but Drew Brees has really, really made value out of what other people thought was not there. That's why, to me, he's probably the greatest of all time, but those rings mean a lot, so I always give him the caveat of statistical of all time.
Granted that. Also, think about it with Jimmy Graham. Jimmy Graham was the same thing as Gates.
Yes,
he
Gates.
was another guy that
sir.
He only played a little bit. He played a little bit more. He played a freshman year after you, but he was mainly a basketball player. And they brought him into New Orleans, and lo and behold, Drew made that dude a star. But ever since he's left Drew, even playing with Aaron Rodgers, he's been, now he's with Mitchell Trubisky. So we'll pretty much be seeing him commentating within a year.
Absolutely. Like I said, these guys have been made better. We're still on the winners and losers of this thing. I did mention Kyler Murray. I was hoping you grabbed that one by the horns. The Arizona Cardinals are huge winners in this free agency thing too, because of that D-Hop move. Listen, Deshaun Watson is as good as he's been because he's had DeAndre Hopkins, who could bail him out of basically any situation. Kyler Murray, all due respect to Larry Fitzgerald, at this stage of his career, he's not that guy. He's really just a glorified Witten at this point. Like Jason,
he's a little bit better than that.
I'm just
don't do my dude like that, bro. Don't do my dude like that.
I'm just saying he's a 6 to 10 yard route guy that may be able to get you 12 to 15 on those routes. He's not explosive anymore. And now he's got a guy that can create separation, doesn't drop passes at all, like has the best footwork that we've probably ever seen at this position. If they can develop chemistry like Deshaun and D-Hop had, and that's a big if because Deshaun and D-Hop did have that Clemson connection. But Kyler Murray has a legit number one receiver. And other young quarterbacks that have had legit number one receivers tend to be exceptional and develop a lot faster than a Mitchell Trubisky. Like, we can continue to make fun of Mitchell Trubisky, but the Bears have not put a number one receiver with him either. Not a real number one receiver. Not a real number one tight end. They have not had weapons for him. So we can keep beating up on him, but if we're going to beat up on that team, we should beat up on the front office for not surrounding him with the talent. Kyler Murray has that in Arizona. They highway robbed the Houston Texans, and I think they are one of the top winners of free agency so far because of it.
Here's one thing to keep. I know we keep beating the dead horse with the Texans, but we have to say this. I start thinking about this. If Carolina got rid of Cam Newton by just waiting, and eventually they released him, no other team went and had to trade draft picks or players or anybody for Cam Newton, former MVP, former Super Bowl contender, whole nine. Wouldn't you think that and basically, you knew Arizona was picking up Kenyon Drake. And for the record, he did sign his transition tag yesterday. So he's going to be an Arizona Cardinal. So my question is, as far as this is concerned, why didn't the Texans just wait? Like, they could have probably got a lot more for D-Hop, and they could have probably, if they really wanted David Johnson, they were going to get him on a free agency market because Arizona damn sure was going to release him. But this is what makes me feel Bill O'Brien's a horrible GM, because you bucked and you pulled a trade, and Arizona's sitting there like, sure, okay, we were going to get rid of this guy anyway. And it's not like a one man's trash is another man's treasure. It's a running back position. And once a running back starts going downhill, it's very rare. Maybe the exception is Adrian Peterson when he blew out his knee and then came back to have that great season. And that's the only one I can think of right now. It's very rare for a running back to ever get back to where they came or where they were. And David Johnson, he messed up his knee in 2016. I had him in fantasy football. Trust me, I know. 2017. Mm-hmm. And has not been the same since. So I've avoided him after that by all means necessary. And
you and everyone
else. Do you think that all of a sudden that this is going to change the game? Like, oh, yeah, David Johnson is going to all of a sudden become a 1,200-yard and 700 reception back? No. Yeah, be great. The Texans should be happy if they get 900 yards rushing and 300 yards receiving out of David Johnson. Just being honest.
Well, if they get that out of him, they definitely better be happy.
But the thing is they want that's how smart teams play. You go ahead and you deal the hand. That's how Arizona to me won. They just sat. And then they waited. And then they just like, there's a fool born every minute. Oh, well, the fool's in Houston, Texas.
You don't even have to wait on the fool to be born. At this stage, I think teams should just start contacting Bill O'Brien and see if they can offer him a Snickers and some toilet paper and get Deshaun Watson out of there. Like, he's a clown. Like, he has really embarrassed Houston. So that's why they're probably the biggest losers. Arizona is definitely one of the biggest winners by upgrading at wide receiver, especially for the development of their young quarterback, Kyler Murray. I don't think they're there yet, but with Drake, with Hopkins, with the ability of Kyler Murray, I don't believe in him yet. I'm sorry, I just don't. I don't know if his arm is – I just don't believe in him yet, and I could be wrong. And they could be in the playoffs this year. I don't know if I don't believe in him as much as I don't know a lot like this coach they have a lot. He was actually fired from college football and ends up with this job. But we will see. I know that they have found a lot of talent to put around young Kyler Murray, and you can now use Larry Fitzgerald for what he truly should be, third or fourth receiver, and not your primary target on the third down anymore. Like, you now have a primary target that you know will catch everything and get you the first down. So I do think Arizona is one of the biggest winners in free agency so far this season. As we move on, the next thing you wanted to talk about was Dak Prescott and the Cowgirls returning to the negotiating table. And yes, I said that right. The Cowgirls. um, I think they overpaid. I think, to me, you know how I felt about this Dak Prescott thing all along. I felt like letting test free agency. I really believe that. I just did not see him being the highest paid quarterback in the National Football League. I don't believe he's worth that. He may be worth it to them, but that doesn't mean you pay him that. Like, that means you let other people tell him how much he's worth, and then you match it. That was my argument all along. The only place that I could have seen him going that probably would have tried to spin Dallas is probably Indianapolis, because if they did that with Phillip Rivers, I just think had they had the opportunity, they would have spent that money on anyone.
I kept saying Miami because Miami hasn't done anything in free agency, but yet they have the most in cap room and draft picks. But they didn't do anything in free agency.
But they have been high and they want Tua. They feel like they're going to get Tua. So I didn't see that room there. I didn't see that space there. I think they accept that they're going to have to deal with Fitzpatrick this year, and Tua is their next year's answer. That's why this is why I had this argument all along. What team would pay Dak Prescott like the best football player in the league? And the only answer is the Dallas Cowboys. And that's why you don't pay him that much. If I'm on one aspect, Dak Prescott, I'm a fan of how he's trying to get paid like this, especially from that team, because I don't like Jerry Jones. But as far as a shrewd negotiation is concerned, I respect the hell out of what Dallas is doing, not giving him that moniker, not folding to the pressure that Prescott and maybe the fan base is trying to put on them, because there were other options that probably make you more successful, if you ask me.
I agree, because, again, I still like the aspect of Cam. We talked about this, and it was always about the value to the team. But I still think one Cam Newton would have been a nice fit in D-Town.
Yes.
And you definitely would have got him for a shitload cheaper, and probably because at his point of his career, mind you, Dak is 25, Cam is going to be 31, 32. Cam has already got his big contract. He probably will never get a bigger contract like this unless he all of a sudden channels his inner Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, and run like Michael Vick, which I don't see happening. I like Cam, but he could
have got $25 million a year. They could have just paid Cam $25 million a year for the next 4 years and saved themselves $8 million a year that they could spend on other positions. Hey, this team is already overpaid Amari Cooper, for real. They've already overpaid Amari Cooper. Now you're about to overpay Dak Prescott. To me, Jerry Jones should have fired himself as GM. He might be the second worst GM in the league behind Bill O'Brien. He should have fired himself as GM a long time ago, because nobody values Amari Cooper the way Jerry Jones valued him. And because he paid Amari Cooper that kind of money, you ain't got no choice but make Dak the highest paid quarterback in the league now, because, dude, listen, Cooper is clear. He wouldn't be number one on the Chiefs. He wouldn't be number one in Tampa. He wouldn't be number one in Minnesota. At this point, I don't know that he'd be number one in Buffalo now that they have Diggs. He wouldn't be number one in Los Angeles Chargers. He wasn't really a number one with the Raiders. He would probably be number one with the 49ers. Just by default, because they have no one else now.
He wouldn't be number one with us, because if we got a healthy Juju, he would be more of essential than Cooper. I was just being real.
So maybe the Bears, maybe the Eagles.
Well, okay, time out.
And Skins.
The Bears, yeah. The Eagles, if you have a healthy Alshon Jeffrey, I think he's better. Alshon Jeffrey, to me, is better than Amari Cooper if he's healthy.
I thought Jeffrey was in Chicago. No, you're right.
He ain't been in Chicago.
That's been a minute. Yeah. But the point is,
either way,
he
$25 million a year
for that guy. That's just overspending.
beyond overspending. That's just deficit disorder at its best. I don't know how he even thought of this one. But again, we're not here, and this is also the team last year that paid one DeMarcus Lawrence, who came to the table with a "Pay Me" shirt, paid him $115 million, where the guys only had a double-digit sack season once, and he wanted Aaron Donald, Khalil Mack money, and he got it. I would have paid your guy Frank Clark more than I would have did DeMarcus Lawrence, and it showed because DeMarcus Lawrence the next season only had 8 sacks, but played all 16 games.
Listen, I'm going to keep riding Frank Clark until it doesn't work anymore. So you can we won a damn Super Bowl with me riding his back, so I'm going to keep doing it until it doesn't work anymore. Anyway, Dak and the Cowboys are back at the negotiating table. It's clear they're going to make him the highest paid quarterback, but I really can't be mad at that because I believe currently, as the contracts are constructed, Kirk Cousins is the highest paid quarterback in the National Football League, and he definitely doesn't deserve to be. Dak, go ahead and get paid and blow Jerry's wallet. I don't give a damn. In bigger news, and going towards the NBA, both Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell have apparently fully recovered from coronavirus. This is a shout out to our boy Omar. You're going to recover too.
Yes, sir.
So, with these two recovering, I have to believe that the rest of these players are closer to recovering also. I haven't heard of any of these players in the NBA having been struck into the point where they might not, or they might need to go on respirators or anything like that. I've not heard any of them being seriously ill by the coronavirus. Do you think with these two becoming clear of the coronavirus and us probably moving closer to the rest of these players having beat this virus, do you think we're closer to crowdless games?
Not the crowded games. I think the games because you still have a lot of people that still were infected in a worse way than the NBA players, because of course the NBA guys are top athletes.
No, I said crowdless, no crowds.
Oh, crowdless. I'm sorry, no crowd. I could see it. The NBA wants it badly.
No. The world wants it badly. We're desperate for sports.
That is true. Again, when ESPN is showing the 1993 All-American game with Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett, I'm like, damn, these dudes are in the Hall of Fame. This is old. Yeah, I might as well just go ahead and get Magic in them with high socks and tight basketball shorts.
Bro, they played WrestleMania 30 on ESPN.
Damn, son.
Wow.
Bad.
That's
all.
We need this.
Don't they have enough 30 for 30s that they can do? I mean, shit, it's just like they used to do a 30 for 30 every damn month. They got at least 30 for 30s.
Bro,
even though, you're right.
This weekend, I am definitely going to rewatch the Super Bowl, okay? That's how bad it is. I'm definitely rewatching the Super Bowl. I have not yet rewatched the Super Bowl, so this is not going to be like the 10th time. But I am going to tune it up this weekend, and I am going to rewatch the Super Bowl. We need this. So I'm hoping that maybe we're 2 weeks away from having crowdless games, especially if they charter the planes to make sure that the planes are safe of coronavirus. And I think that's what they will need to do. And your staff inside those arenas is going to be minimalized now because you don't have fans. So you're not overexposing people and putting that extra risk there. I'm all for it. I know people like LeBron James are not, but dude, we need something. And if these players are getting healthy again and it can be done safely, please bring back basketball. Because what we're about to talk about in the next couple minutes is greatest scorers of all times, Harden versus Jordan. And that's no competition. But that's how bad it's gotten that we have decided to put Harden on a platform that he doesn't deserve to be on. Because we need sports that bad.
Yeah, it's getting hard up in these streets not being able to talk sports or anything. I've even seen guys via online barbershop talk about. That's the only reason why we're talking about Harden versus Jordan, because now it's nothing but barbershop talk. Although there's no barbershops that are open unless you have a private barber. Yeah,
I'm gonna interrupt you real
I
quick.
would hope.
From the sick bed and coronavirus, Omar just sent me a message saying we are much longer than 2 weeks away from crowdless games.
Yeah. Well, Omar, you need to tell that to the guy in the orange guy in the White House, because he says he's opening up the doors for everything on Easter, which is absolutely crazy. But okay, I agree with Omar before I agree with the guy in the White House. Again, he's not my president.
I'm also being told that we should not elevate Harden to the conversation to Jordan. This is again coming from Omar. He wants me to go Kobe versus Jordan.
But that's too. We got to do current.
Yeah,
Omar.
we're doing current versus old school. So I can do Kobe versus Harden. And
wait, no, let's do this. Greatest Rocket of all time, not named Elijah One. Let's do Harden versus T-Mac.
I abstain.
No, I'll take.
I abstain. And listen, you talking about two players that are essentially the same thing. No, I don't want. No, yeah. Yes.
You take Harden, I'll take T-Mac.
I don't want neither one of them.
Dude, I thought about this. Only Daryl Moore was the only one that said Jordan. I was trying to pull this out my ass. I said, Jordan. I said Jordan.
Like,
I was like, all right, Raz is gonna have to take Harden. I can't do.
No way in hell.
No.
No way in West hell you was gonna get me to take Harden in this one. No way.
Well, that's the whole point.
When I saw it, I said he's trying to get me to take Harden. He doesn't understand. I'm a real Bulls fan, and this is Michael Jordan we're talking about. There's no way in West hell I'm gonna defend or even elevate Harden to this conversation. Like, that just wasn't gonna happen. Like,
well, I mean, we did it. Daryl Morey said he's the greatest scorer of all time.
Do I look like
Jordan, not player, as a scorer?
Do I look like Bill O'Brien to you? I'm not that sucker that was born 5 minutes ago. I'm not. No.
I know. I
gotta maintain some credibility, bro. Come on.
All right, that's why I brought up another topic. So we'll skip that. I was trying to go Harden versus T-Mac. I actually started to type that, and then I deleted and went Jordan.
And you
but
see
it was going to be Harden versus T-Mac, and I was going to take T-Mac.
And you see what that made me do? Like, I pulled one of those congressman's moves, and I just voted present for that one. Like, for real, just present.
Boy.
I'm not
about to say, you knew, like, KC became Mitch McConnell.
Yeah, present. All of a sudden, I'm present. I'm not voting. Not yes, not no. Just present. Like. Great. The answer to your question is Calvin Murphy, by the way. That's the greatest Rocket outside of Akeem the Dream Olajuwon. That's the answer.
Yeah, I get it. Well, couldn't use Calvin Murphy. I had to go ahead and use. The guys that we watched.
I know, but listen.
Calvin Murphy's ugly suits. I ain't never watched Calvin Murphy play.
I agree with you, but there is no way in West Hell I'm picking T-Mac or James Harden. That's just not happening. Like, no.
Fine,
you're talking
Harden,
about
I'll take Clyde.
Not as a Rocket. You like maybe for Portland, but not as a Rocket. Like, if you're talking about those two players are basically the Chiefs up until Patrick Mahomes and after Lynn Dawson. They just great regular season players and playoff utility. Huh?
Shit. I said that's 50 years.
Well,
you got a huge guy.
Those guys are just playoff futility. They suck in the playoffs, like both of them. And listen, if you want to have an argument, let's have the argument that T-Mac does not belong in the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. We can do that because he doesn't at all. No, sir.
Okay.
Not at all.
Okay.
No.
All right, let's go. I'll go there.
Look, he took the bait.
I'll go there. Why does T-Mac need to go be in the Basketball Hall of Fame? I'll give you 2 words, Grant Hill. If Grant's in the Hall of Fame, T-Mac's in the Hall of Fame. Because Grant's career outside of the 6 years in Detroit was absolutely journeyman style. So if Grant's in the Hall of Fame, T-Mac definitely is in the Hall of Fame, like it or not. T-Mac also won 3 scoring titles. Now, to this generation means absolutely nothing. This is why if we're going strictly old school basketball, Harden doesn't deserve the Hall of Fame because a scoring title doesn't mean fiddly squat in today's NBA because all these guys are jacking up 30, 40 points a game versus back in the day, if you average 30 points a game, you was pretty much only Mike, Bernard King, and maybe some center, or David Robinson, Shaq, and those guys. But T-Mac also did something that Harden does not do. T-Mac at least played defense. I mean, I'm just saying. I would say T-Mac, is he first ballot? How he got in? Absolutely not. I was shocked when he got in as a first ballot. Maybe 5th or 6th ballot Hall of Famer. Yeah, okay. I'll give T-Mac that. First ballot was kind of a stretch to me.
Yeah.
The only other reason why I think he got into the Hall of Fame so early is because he was one of the first. He was one of the new generation of straight out of high school kids that actually did something. I'm trying to pull up his stat.
Which
7-time All-Star, T-Max.
Yeah.
7-time All-Star, 2-time first team, 3-time second team. So
only 2 times scoring champ, by the way. Only 2 times.
Yeah, only 2 times. Most improved player, CBA All-Star. Oh, Chinese basketball. Well, that don't count.
Yeah.
It's hard. Okay, it's hard for me to give him this because his career average is 19, 5 and 4. His best years is all his Orlando career, and then a couple of years in his first 2 years in Houston, and then after that, it pretty much went downhill with T-Mac.
So can I say why he got in the first ballot? His particular bridge era of basketball was probably the most watered down basketball that I can remember. That was that right before
even this generation.
No, like it was the bridge. It was the Jordan Kobe bridge, and Kobe was still he was still getting to that level of being the Mamba, and T-Mac retired right around that bridge area. And there's who else were you going to put in the Hall of Fame from that era? Like, they weren't very good. Like that era of basketball is when I turned it off. Like seriously.
Well, here's the thing. That bridge era was, realistically speaking, was also the dying age of the big man, because right around the time T-Mac came into his level, the big man era was basically Yao and Shaq, and we all can yell. And that's another reason. Yao's in the Hall of Fame. Enough said. And he went in not because of international, but he came in as NBA at 13 points a game.
Bro,
but anyway,
bullshit. More bullshit. More bullshit.
It's hard for me to go there with T-Mac. He never won. He never played on the real Olympic squad. He played on the FIBA thing. But again, they're basing it off of his scoring titles, which, I mean, if it's scoring titles,
too.
Yeah. But he had his average that year was like 35 a game. He was lighting it up in Orlando, even though they didn't do shit. They got eliminated in the first round too.
What does that matter?
I mean, because they traded him so fast to Houston for Steve Francis, and at that point, Steve Francis was kind of watered down. Him and Coutinho were both at
the
that
entire
point really
era right then was blah. Like it was that we're waiting on someone to emerge, and no one emerged. And look, he had a decent career. I'm not gonna knock him, but I would take Harden over T-Mac. Okay, you finally got me to say it. I would take Harden over T-Mac. I would do that. I do want to do. I want to wait until Omar comes back, and I'd say let's green light, especially if we're still dead. Let's go ahead and green light probably the biggest argument of generations, probably ever. We're gonna green light who is the actual GOAT, LeBron or Michael Jordan. So that is what we're going. That'll give Omar reason to get better sooner. We're going to say that as soon as he's available from coronavirus, that he gets to lead that topic. Who is the actual GOAT, LeBron James or Michael Jordan? Maybe he'll actually get better sooner so we can have this debate, especially if we're still sportsless. I did have something else on the cover for this episode, which is the Chef Curry versus Jesus Shuttleworth, or Ray Allen, two of the greatest shooters of all time. I'm taking Steph. You can have Ray Allen.
I'm taking Jesus. And if y'all don't know why his nickname is Jesus Shuttlesworth, it's because of one of the greatest basketball movies of all time in my era, I opinion, was He Got Game, and Ray played Jesus Shuttlesworth was his character. For those who don't know, or millennials who don't watch Spike Lee movies, which y'all suck if y'all don't. Yeah, Steph is a great shooter, one of the greatest shooters of all time. He hikes up everywhere, anywhere. But Ray's smoothness, oh my God, it was just. He was clutch. The one thing is, I will say this: Steph has not had. Maybe he's never had to, but he wasn't really clutch in the playoffs. Like Ray was a dagger in the playoffs for so many games. Let's be honest. Miami only has two. Miami's second ring is not because of D Wade, Bosh, or LeBron. It's because of Ray Allen. Ray Allen saved that team in the finals against San Antonio. Because right now, if it all came down to that. Kawhi Leonard would have had 2 rings in San Antonio versus just 1. And Ray Allen killed the Spurs, and he was the dagger in the playoffs. The only other person that was more clutch in the playoffs when it comes to three-point shooting is probably, I won't even say Reggie Miller, it's probably Larry Bird. And that's the only reason. Steph can shoot it 1,000,001 times and make it. He's like 50% from three-point line. I get it. But in clutch situations, Steph has struggled. Ray Allen, nah, son. Ray in the fourth with 3 seconds on the line. He gets that ball, he touched it, that bad boy goes in. And that's the only reason why I'm going to ride with Ray Allen, because of clutch performances, not necessarily volume of threes. Because if it's volume, then I'll go with Steph.
Not just volume, bro. 6-time All-Star, 3-time NBA champ, 2-time MVP, 6-time All-NBA, All-Rookie, 1-time scoring champ. Like, your guy doesn't have any of those accolades, except for he's been a champ twice. I don't care. Like, I'm going by number. I don't care.
Where Eric came from, though.
Huh?
Hold up. I got to say this. Now we're going to go there with the era. So I'm going to go to be the old guy. I'm taking Omar's spot. Omar, if you're listening, I got you for right now. We're coming from the eras now, bro. This era, remember when Ray got drafted? Ray got drafted in one of the most famous draft classes of all time, and that was a draft with him, Iverson, Kobe, Steve Nash, Antoine Walker, the list goes on. That's the hand check era. That means they actually could put their hand on you while you're shooting, and it wouldn't be called a ticky-tack foul. Ray Allen actually fought through screens and had to go against guys that actually play defense. Name me one person that really plays defense, not named Kawhi Leonard, that's a guard that goes against Steph. I may give you Dave and Lil sometimes, but name me another guy that had to play defense on Steph where Steph is not hiking up the ball.
Pat Beverly.
No, and Pat Beverly gets lit up like a Christmas. Pat Beverly gets lit up like a Christmas tree. But Ray had to deal with Jordan. He had to deal with Reggie Miller when he felt like playing defense. John Starks when John Starks was in his prime. Kobe. You actually had guys, Vince Carter, T-Mac when he wanted to play defense. You had guys that actually wanted to square up again and play defense, and Ray was still lighting them up. That's why I'm giving it to Jesus Shuttlesworth. Plus, he was a great actor in that movie. I love that movie. I might watch that today.
2-time MVP.
In what era? What the era of this?
No. No. So what? 2-time MVP.
All right.
Your boy ain't never been an MVP. Nash. He ain't been an MVP on his team ever.
Like you forgot all them Sonics years.
Oh, come on.
They just didn't. They couldn't beat the Lakers. But them Sonics years he was, and hell, he was the reason why they got rid of Big Dog Glenn Robinson in Milwaukee. Yes, showing my age, but they got rid of an all-star because this is Ray's team.
Two-time MVP of the league, of the association, two-time MVP of his team. Not two-time MVP of his conference, your boy. This guy's a two-time MVP of the league. Your boy cannot handle Steph. Oh, by the way, Steph can damn near shoot from half court. Your boy couldn't do that.
Yes, he could.
No.
He just didn't need to.
Nah. I'm taking Steph.
Okay, Reg. Okay, I give you that. You can take it. But in this generation, these kids, you have centers that are shooting 5 feet behind the three-point line. Everybody's shooting three-pointers.
Yeah.
Back then, people played differently. I'm pretty sure I've watched Ray Allen. I've seen highlights of Ray Allen. And if we go back, here I go. I'm showing my age now. Omar, you listening? I'm showing my age now. I'm going to go back to the UConn versus Georgetown game, Allen Iverson and Ray in college. Them two were hiking up shots behind the three-point line 5 feet and were killing it. Ray could do it. Ray didn't need to do it. But Ray was clutch when it needed to be clutch. No one has a definitive clutch moment for Steph Curry. They had a ooh and a crossover and this, that, third moment. But because Steph's team all his teams were so damn loaded, they didn't need the clutch moment. I can actually say they were probably more
you're
loaded
penalizing. Hold on. So you're penalizing him for success around him. He's still, even with that success around him, he's still a two-time NBA MVP.
I think the MVP conversation is a little loaded because you still got a guy called Steve Nash that had 2 of them. When Shaq was the most dominant player.
Come on now. That's not fair.
I don't even use the MVP conversation. That's you
want to talk about eras. That's an era thing.
Shaq and Kobe were robbed of MVP trophies because they wanted to give it to the Canadian kid. We can't go there.
You can call him Canadian, but let's call it what it is. They wanted to give it to the white guy.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
You can call him Canadian. He was Canadian. Yeah,
so they
great.
Give it to the yellow. Yeah, and
bro, he didn't give it to the yellow guy. You saying Steph didn't earn his MVPs?
No, Steph earned his MVP, but light-skinned guys are in back then. It was like Drake. So anyway, he's
wait. Now I feel like you're taking a shot across the city, across Kansas City. Now light-skinned guys are in, so now you're going after my guy. Really?
No, I'm not. Not on Patrick Mahomes' behalf, because if it was like that, then they would have still had Russell as number 2 for MVP because light-skinned guys was in. But that era, that particular year, light-skinned guys was in. Drake was having number 1 record. Steph was winning MVPs. It was a good day. It was a good year to look like Albie Shore. But anyways, I'm still going with Jesus Shuttlesworth and clutchness because Jesus is also my complexion, and he can hit that stroke from anywhere if necessary. But clutch moments, no one can be more clutch than Jesus Shuttlesworth outside of Larry Bird, and some people will debate me with Reggie Miller, but Reggie Miller, yeah, okay, sure. Reggie Miller wasn't that. All he had was a 3-point shot, and he only averaged like 15 points a game if you really want to get technical.
So I'm going to go ahead and nix the NFL comparisons. We'll do that one on Tuesday, if that's okay with you.
No doubt.
It's Friday. It's supposed to be NBA Day, and this was kind of fun. Shout out to Omar. We are holding the GOAT conversation for you. Get better soon. On Tuesday, we will be back. We're going to talk Michael Thomas versus Terrell Owens, Marshall Faulk versus Christian McCaffrey, and I'm sure J-Dub is going to give me a couple more that I can make look foolish. Until then, I'm KC Reginald Jr.
It's your man, J-Dub. Justin Waters in the building.
This has been UnderDawg Sportz.